Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. In this stock market update for the week ending Friday, August 8th, we're going to dive in and take a look here at the side-by-side of the industrials, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Then we're going to take a look at the Russell 2000, look at a couple of stocks that are just skyrocketing, and a couple of other interesting things, and look at Bitcoin. I'm going to look at Bitcoin ETF, GBTC, and also IBIT also. All right, so, well, first thing I wanted to just mention is, came across this. On this day, 30 years ago, Netscape went public and basically changed the internet and started opening it up because all of a sudden you had a browser that could easily be used by just the average Joe, right? So it's started to change everything, the whole dynamic. And eventually Netscape was bought for $4.2 billion by AOL in 1998. So let's start off here. The Dow was up, 587 points. A little inside, slightly up type candle in here after that big move down last week, or the week before last, I guess I should say. And then on the S&P 500, a little bit stronger price action, up 151 points, but it was also inside the entire trading range of that bearish engulfing candle that we got the week of, the week of July 27th. So Sunday, July 27th is the way the dates work in here in this software program. NDX up 848 points, a little bit stronger, closing slightly above the prior week high. So even though we had a bearish engulfing candle there, got zero follow through to the downside at this point in the SPX. Okay, I want to take a look at IWM. Let's go back here to the home screen. So this was, I'm on the Elliott wave. I'm going to come back to that real quick. Let's just show you what I call the moving average view, which has got all my indicators and everything on it. So it was up 48 cents on Friday, just a slightly up type day, just in inside, slightly up day, very tight trading range in here, the tightest of this week and probably several weeks actually, and up $5.40 on the week. So it looks very much like the Dow Industrials picture. And it's interesting that, again, the Russell 2000 and the industrials just seem to mirror each other. If I have a mixed picture on the indices, it seems if like two are up and two are down, it seems like the industrials and the Russell 2000 are always kind of in sync. Like they're up or they're down, and the other two, the SPY and the Qs, are together. So it's kind of weird in terms of how this is in sync to a certain degree with what's going on with the Dow Industrial. So when we go to the Elliott wave picture, let me just look at the weekly to start. I'm still counting this as minute wave 1 up, that we're in a wave 3, that we're trying to work our way higher in here, putting it somewhat in sync with what I've got with the rest of the indices, although I got to say this has been really dogging it over the last several years, right? It's just done nothing. It just has basically chopped sideways. We haven't even taken out the high, I don't believe, here from November of 21. If you go, no, we haven't. Well, if we did, it was a couple of points. Let's see, the high, 244.98. The high, 244.46. So we got a half a point higher in November of last year. So again, not a pretty picture given what's been happening with the other indices. So now the proof's in the pudding. Is this going to continue pushing? And what's been happening lately? It's a big question mark in my mind, because this looks like a little three wave, and what, 5 wave for a flat? It's really, really hard to determine. Maybe something even stronger is going on, or maybe it's the bearish scenario that I've got over here in the blue scenario. But I'm I'm going to stick with this for now, and we'll see what develops. We've got a lower low and need to see a continuation lower high, which means this needs to continue to come down and break down. So we've got one trend line break. Are we going to get another? That's what we'll be watching for right here, right? And just to put that in sync with what I've got, let's just do that. Okay, so that's where we sit with the Russell. I think it's rolling over. It looks like it's trying to roll over. We got a little moving average cross, which we haven't had since we crossed to the upside back here at the end of April, okay, and on the daily chart. So now we've come to the downside. Are we going to continue to get follow through? Okay, the next thing I want to look at is, I wanted to show you this. Where is it? Right here. Okay, so I'm looking for near-term corrections of some kind in the next, August, September. I've talked about, I think I showed some stuff last week that talked about how this is a seasonally weak period for the stock market. Well, this was an interesting tweet by Jason Gopert, and he talked about what the SPY has gapped up at the open for the 18th time in the last 19 sessions. And he put this out on Friday morning. Okay, so that counted all of the data of this last week. And he said this has only happened 2 other times since the SPY has been created, which in 1993. One was back here in 97, February 97. And you could see he had a little bit more upside for a couple of days, then went into this corrective move for a couple of months. And then back in January of 2018, we had a little more upside than what we show here, but then went into a more substantial correction that lasted for about 3 months, I guess, or maybe 2.5 months, something like that. So we'll see what happens in here. But I thought that was an interesting little tweet that he put out. Okay, so the other thing I came across and I wanted to share with you is this about Nvidia. It now makes up over 8% of the S&P 500, the highest weighting for any single stock in the history in the index on record. Okay, higher than Apple was here a year or 2 ago, higher than anything Microsoft or ExxonMobil achieved, higher than IBM back in 1985. So pretty interesting stuff. And yeah, it's going full blast. Let's take a look at Nvidia. Let me scroll down here, find it. I've got it on my favorites list. So here's what's going on. Let's just focus on the daily chart. So here's what caught my eye about Nvidia. What I noticed is this red line is a 20-day average volume on Nvidia. And it looked like we had a little bit of a peak in here. Now, I'm ignoring back in here because this counts some of the volume that kicked in with the whole downside move that happened March and April. So I'm trying to just look at the volume that's happening to the upside. And then where is it maybe dying off a little bit? Well, it kind of peaked right here on June 9th at 229 million shares a day on a 20-day average volume. And it's dropped off to 158 million as of Friday, a 31% drop. But yet in that same time period, the stock has pushed higher, close to close of 28.1%. So it almost gives you the impression that it's starting to run on a little less energy, a little less volume is buying into this or pushing it higher. So we'll see. By no means am I saying short the stock right now. Okay. What I'm saying is it raises a flag that says, watch for a price breakdown, watch for a potential rollover. We're getting divergences showing up on the indicators. So that's just one thing, and this is a Dow Industrial component too, as well as being in the S&P 500. Let's see. The other one I wanted to take a look at is this. We talk about animal spirits this summer. Look at Palantir. I mean, this stock is just rocketing rocketing along, extremely overbought. And the thing about getting extremely overbought is they could take it away from you very, very quickly. Now, I mean, you can also ride for quite a while, but we'll see where we go in here. We had a little bit of divergence show up back here in February to kind of indicate that some things were going a little bit awry. We don't have anything like that right now, but this stock jumped literally from Friday to Friday. It was up 21.1%, 21.2% in this move. Huge, huge move. So, I mean, you look at intraday reading down here on April 7th of, well, let me just show you, $66.12, and now we're sitting, it's basically tripled since the low on April. So what is that, April 7th? April 7th to, here it is, August 9th. So 4 months, stock's tripled. That's on fire. Okay, so let's take a look at Bitcoin. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. And let me go up here. So, yeah, I know I'm not showing the exact chart of Bitcoin itself. I don't chart it. I do look at the futures contracts, the Bitcoin futures in here. So here's what that looks like. But guess what? GBTC and IBIT mirror exactly the same thing. Okay, so the interesting thing here is I was looking at the consolidation. I really thought we were going to maybe get a breakout and continuation here this last a week ago, but we didn't get it. Started to break down. So now the real question is, are we going to get a surge, break this trend line, and go to another little peak in here, or are we going to start to roll over? Now, here's what I'm watching on GBTC, and this has been on my radar for a while. Okay, so the other thing I like about GBTC versus IBIT, at least from a longer term, is IBIT hasn't been trading that long. Okay, now granted, the volume is not even close. I mean, GBTC is not even close to the volume being traded on IBIT. But here's the point I want to talk about. When we had halving, and I know that I think there was at least one more halving prior to this one in 2016. 17 months after that halving, approximately, okay, there was a peak in Bitcoin. Then we had a halving in May of 2020. In approximately 17 months, basically the end of the upswing occurred. Now, granted, the peak was right here in February, and we went just a little bit, we almost got up and took out the high, but we got up there. Then we got the substantial correction move to the downside. So, we got close. And then here we are now. The halving occurred in April. I think it was like right in here around April 18th or 19th or so of last year. 17 months puts it right at early September, right into September. And so we're just a couple weeks. This is a weekly chart. So we're just a couple of weeks away. So is this the peak? Or are we going to do that little surge that I just talked about on the daily chart and kind of surge up in here? And it'll be really, really interesting to see if this then, if the indices roll into a corrective mode for the fall, that they take Bitcoin with it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be watching. It's going to be really, really interesting. And of course, you got plenty of the, what do they call it now, Bitcoin treasury companies out there to watch and see if they're rolling over or how they're acting too. Bitcoin treasury companies, by the way, if you don't know, are companies who are buying Bitcoin in order to try to pump the stock value of their company. And that's what they're doing. And and some are doing it to, of course, the one that started it basically is what they call strategy now. It goes by the name of strategy, but I think it was MicroStrategy. Anyway, So this is where I sit with Bitcoin. I think it could be really interesting here over the next couple of months. Let me move this back over a little bit. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. We'll see what happens this coming week and over the next couple of weeks. If you felt like the video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, hit that little subscriber button. And if you'd like more of this information, head on over to joehenches.net. Check out the website, check out the membership. Everyone have a great week.